Hi everyone, thanks for joining us at In the Know. We're catching up with some of your favorite celebs, reality TV stars, and more direct from their homes. I'm your host, Gibson Johns, and today we're joined by Darren Barnet, who has been deemed America's new boyfriend for his turn as Paxton hall-yoshida on Netflix's Never Have I Ever. We chatted about what it's been like having the biggest project of his career get released during quarantine, his gigs leading up to the show, including working at a celeb favorite SoulCycle location in LA, Never Have I Ever's bar-raising approach to representation, and where he hopes Paxton's story goes from here. Keep listening for my full interview with Darren. So Darren Barnet, we're so excited to be talking to you today because we're loving Never Have I Ever. How are you holding up?
Doing my best. It's I got back from Palm Springs recently. I had a little bit of a getaway. We got to get out for a minute, but otherwise it's been me, myself, and I in my apartment. So just trying to maintain any kind of routine I can. The love from the fans and the attention you're on the show is definitely so
good. What it has been part of that routine? Like, what are the kind of things that you're trying to do every day to just like kind of stay sane, I guess?
Just trying to maintain some kind of schedule, because it's like midnight and noon just aren't much different nowadays.
Right.
I'll be up at like midnight and I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed, and then I'm up till 3 a.m. just like random nonsense. So trying to like wake up, work out, make food, FaceTime with friends. Doing publicity for the show actually has given me some structure.
Good.
Been so busy, which is I'm so thankful for. So it's given me something to have to be up every morning by a certain time, which is great.
Yeah, and I would think that Never Have Ever premiering during the quarantine is probably bittersweet in some ways, because on the one hand, there's probably more people watching because people are watching more TV than they ever have right now because we're all stuck in our homes. So that kind of just grows the potential audience right there in and of itself. But you also can't get out there and do promo and talk to fans and meet people. Where do you sort of stand on that mentally? Because I'm assuming you probably wrestle with that a little bit.
It is bittersweet because, I keep getting this question, like, how does it feel? How does it feel when the show's such a hit and, you're doing so well, And I'm like, I'm super grateful people are loving the show, but I haven't experienced the whole, like, being able to walk the street or do the in-studio interviews and all of that. So it's bittersweet in that I haven't felt the full effect of, like, I think the fandom behind the show, but
totally.
Also LA traffic really is kryptonite to me. So I don't know if being able to wake up, having slept directly on my face all night and, wearing my pajamas and a jacket is kind of cool for an interview rather than having to go through like hair, makeup, and wardrobe.
That's definitely a silver lining in all of this. You got to avoid a lot of that. That's nice. And, I know it's not about this, but it is just crazy to see that you've gone from 34,000 followers on Instagram to over 1 million followers on Instagram. Again, like that, I think that, a lot of the times we get hung up on those numbers, but it does just show you the impact that the show has. Like that is just like, that speaks for itself. How has that affected just how you've even just like thought about posting on social media? Like, do you think more about it now? Do you think less about it now? Because you have a much bigger audience.
I've always been careful.
Yeah.
I always wanted to groom like my social media, just like my mom's always told me, like, the internet's forever. Don't put anything up that you're gonna regret.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh yeah.
I've been very careful with that. I've always had somewhat of a I don't know, like a guideline that I followed, but yeah, I definitely am like, you have to be like, I'm not one to try and please everyone, to be honest. Like, you all sometimes, but there are certain times that I'm like, will this be offensive to some people? Could this be taken wrong? Like, I overthink what I'm saying because one word can be twisted much.
Oh yeah. So, we've seen it happen so many times, but I think it sounds like you have like sort of the right mentality around it, which is just like wade into it carefully, dip your toes in, and just like don't say something too rash, right?
Kindness and art, and that's those are the three things I try and stick by.
All right, so before we get into Never Have I Ever, I do want to talk a little bit about just sort of your journey to getting to this show because you had small parts here and there when you were living in LA
Mm.
before getting this huge life-changing role. And I did read somewhere that you wrote that you worked at SoulCycle in LA
I
before
did.
what we kind of in the past years. What was that like? And I'm curious because you worked at a location that has a lot of probably celebrity clients. Did anybody famous ever come in?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, David Beckham was a regular, super nice guy. I worked on the one in the Sunset Plaza, so it was just that type of location, and
Mm-hmm.
I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of really cool people. One of them that was really interesting was Tia Mowry, amazing woman, and I grew up a huge fan of her on Sister Sister,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to help her set up her bike, and she was, friends with everyone at the desk, and 4 or 5 years later, I was booked as a guest star on the family reunion that she's on Netflix. So she came to the table read, and I was like, Tia, do you remember me? And she was like, wait, oh my God.
Oh
And like
my
we had like a
God.
moment. It was just one of those like 5 years ago, I'm sitting behind a desk just dying to do any sort of acting work. And now I'm in a room at a table read with you. And it was surreal.
That's really,
So
really cool. And that just
yeah,
to me like that, I feel like that encapsulates life in LA very, very well. It's just sort of like 1 minute you're working behind the desk at SoulCycle and the next you're at a table read with somebody who you've looked up to. That's amazing.
yeah, those are moments that you just hope and pray for, and then yeah, it was SoulCycle has a special place in my heart. It was a really good
Good.
time.
And you also on one episode of This Is Us played young Jack,
Yeah.
and that show has obviously been part of the zeitgeist and is a juggernaut still. What was that experience like working on that show? Did you cross paths with any of the key players at all?
Yeah, yeah. So I originally it was a very quick process. Somewhat like Never Have I Ever actually. It was like the audition and then I no callback, booked it, and then went straight to work. It was very like boom, boom, boom. And it was like my first real, I'll say it was my first real role in LA. Like not real role, but just first like prominent
Right.
role on a show. The first time we did it, I was so psyched and so like being on the Paramount lot, there's nothing like it. It's so nostalgic. You feel like
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe's gonna walk around the corner at any point. I'm taking it all in. I'm going on set and I'm like shadow boxing behind the wall for when this was the first time we did this. It was at a dinner table, and then they wanted to do reshoots. So then when we reshot it, they sat me down this time next to Milo and Mandy as they were getting out of work. They were coming to get their makeup off, and Milo just sits next to me, and I'm like, we're looking in the mirror because they're trying to match us, and I'm like, kind of like looking in a mirror. And I was hope that wasn't too dry. He appreciated it. And
Good.
they had to,
You took the risk and it was slam dunk.
and then I took a risk with Mandy too. I've had a crush on Mandy Moore since I was very young, and I was just
Hmm.
like, hey Mandy. She was like, hey. I was like, so I'm your young husband. She was like, hi young husband. I was like, dreams complete. I can go home now.
That is really fun. I mean, and I feel like that just again, like these little experiences really prime you for whenever your big break happens, which happened to you with Never Have I Ever. So did you feel like kind of having all these little parts just really did give you some really good experience before being on this project?
Yeah, you know what? And it gave me, I feel, the fuel, like the propane I needed to keep going and keep,
Yeah.
lit, because you get on set and there's no feeling like it. And all you're longing for is that feeling again. And seeing key players do what they do and love it so much, it was just so inspiring. And I just wanted to do anything I could to get back to it. So definitely gave me that fire that I
Hmm.
needed behind.
And you mentioned sort of the quick process to getting booked on this show. Can you take me just kind of in your words explain how you got booked on Never Have I Ever? Because I have heard this a little bit, but I'd love to hear it kind of word for word.
It was it was in the middle of a very heavy audition season for me. I had just come off of Marvel Agents of Shield, so I was on
Hmm.
like cloud nine, but also having those post-war blues, and you just get these auditions left and right a lot of at certain points, and I was just very much in the headspace of like I've learned to let things go and not dwell and not look too much into things. I just show up, do the work, and leave. So I didn't even realize Mindy Kaling was attached, even though Mindy Kaling's name was on the breakdown. But I dig the role, cool story. Let's go in and do it. Boom, done, left. And I'm like, probably not going to hear anything. It's usually what it is, but I'm not taking it personally. Let's go. All of a sudden, it was like, hey, you're testing with Mindy Kaling. And I was like, what? And I walk in the room to Mindy, and when we're testing, and the first thing I say, I walk in and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm like, Mindy Kaling. Like, low-key freaking out right now. And thankfully, it broke the ice. And we had a great time. They flexed me a little bit, saw what I can do with the character, you know, threw some things at me. And then I booked it like a week after, I think. And then it was very unorthodox because I've been to the ringer, you know, and actors out there relate to me on this. Like, usually it's the audition, the callback, the director session, the producer session, the test, the network test, the screen test, the chemistry read. None of that. No chemistry, no anything. So, and somehow we all worked well together on camera. So I think Mindy's like a Jedi.
Totally. And I feel like that that to me, that means that you made an impression right off the bat, like the right impression. And you also probably established some sort of connection with Mindy early on. Like, she saw something in you. Did you feel that connection with her kind of just throughout the whole process?
Yeah. Mindy, it's very funny with Mindy because Mindy is like, she commands, even though she's like, you know, so soft spoken and has that sweet voice and is like known to be like Mindy Kaling, she commands a room. Right. And she commands respect immediately. And she's someone that I've never seen it, but I would never want to piss off, you know, like, you know, those type of people. And I just think there was just this, I don't know, like, I had such respect for her, and I think it was mutual. And she was very much, you know, so open to collaborating with all the actors. And she opened up to be a playground where she could have been, if she wanted to, be in her own right, because she's so seasoned in what she does. Like, she could have been a dictator. Never was.
But it sounds like there's almost this unspoken kind of understanding that she's the boss, but she's also very professional, and she's fun. But like, if she wants to kind of crack the whip a little bit, she might have to, you know what I mean? But we have to respect that. And
it's Mindy Kaling though. So it's like, you know, I'm not saying she's cracking jokes all the time, but she's just a delight, and she has a sense of humor, and she's fun, and it was awesome.
Totally. And I'm curious, you know, I think I watched the show and I had no idea how old anybody was that was involved in the show. And, you know, I didn't even realize you were in your 20s and I think that happens a lot with shows that are about teen stories where the actors are a little bit older than you realized. Was your age, or was the age of anybody involved ever like part of the conversation, or like, was that ever like, because I mean, obviously you pull it off very well, but I'm just curious if there was ever that sort of conversation or consideration.
No, it's such an old formula in, you know, but it's funny. I'll just admit, like, it's funny being in my shoes now, because I realize, like, back when I really was in high school or like middle school, and I would watch shows, and some of these people were supposed to be like 15, and then in real life they're 25.
Right.
And that's flashback to 14-year-old me being like, why don't I have abs like that? Like, we're the same age. Apologies to anyone if I'm giving an unrealistic depiction of what a 16-year-old body should look like.
It's just not meant to develop that quickly. Right. But have you found that, like, does it seep into like the real world perception of you ever, I guess, since the show is, because again, like, there's probably a lot of people who don't realize that you're not a teenager.
Yeah, no, I never, I've been in this world of like content, or like, you know, film and TV in terms of like high school world. And it's mostly what I've been thrown to audition for and what I've been called in for. So, and I've read so many of these scripts and dove into so many of these roles that I've understood the world, that I could immerse myself in it enough that it never became like, you know, I really do get lost when I'm on set, and I love that. I love being there.
Totally. I also loved hearing, I mean, because I did a lot of research for this, and it was awesome to read that Mindy, when she found out that you had Japanese heritage, that she approached you and asked if you wanted to incorporate that into Paxton as a character, because that wasn't built into him before you were cast, or before she found that out. that must feel really good as an actor. Again, just feel like sort of, the person that's in charge is looking out for you and kind of wants to make this as good as possible. How involved were you in sort of like being able to craft that part of Paxton going forward, and just talking about the feeling it felt when she brought that up?
She really opened up the platform for, me to like bring ideas and the whole cast, in general. And I mean, obviously, we do have to stick to writing and respect the writers and the creators in general and just keep their vision. But I think Mindy, yeah, she really did open up the platform for us. And I think that's why we were able to mesh so well. I think actors are just better when they can be real and bring some of themselves to it. And Mindy having done this for so long, totally understands that. So
that's awesome. And I think, another thing about Never Have I Ever is that it is so diverse and it represents so many different types of people without feeling like it's checking boxes. It really commits to their backstories and commits to their identities. And it's, like we know a lot about a lot of characters on this show already, and we know a lot about their stories. How does it feel to just be a part of a project that is like that? Because it's pretty rare. I think, obviously it's getting better across the industry, but this is a very unique show in that way.
It's so rare. And what I love, like, it's interesting. Comedy has been something I've always felt I had a knack for, but I just always have been more geared towards deep, dark, dramatic roles, wanting to do thrillers, suspense. But what I realized about this show is that so many shows that lose me so quickly are the ones that spend the whole show checking the boxes, meaning like, there's a show about a minority, and then the whole show is I'm a minority and my life is hard because I'm a minority and this is my struggle. Well, I know that, there are struggles like that, and that's very real. But I think comedy has this ability to more so replicate real life. No one's life is at all times, at every point of the day, a deep, dark, dramatic struggle, and like, there's facts about these characters in the show. Davy is Indian and she struggles with that identity, but the whole show is not about her being Indian. Abiel is gay. The whole show is not about that, and it's just, that's more real life, where like they have fun with it. There's humor in between. And I just love that it never gets preachy, but then it touches real topics as well.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and I think it puts these characters out in a way that anybody who's watching it can relate to something in their story. Whether it is about their racial identity or whether it's just about the fact that they have a crush on somebody who doesn't like them back. You know what I mean? Like it's like very deep, but also can be just like very everyday. And I think that's a hard thing to get right, and it gets it right.
Thankfully so. Yeah. They all know what they're doing.
Totally. Obviously, it seems likely that the show would get a second season. It has not been confirmed or announced, or publicly at least. Where do you want Paxton to go next? What other parts of his story do you want us to see?
I'd like to see his, like Ben had an episode exploring his life, and I would love to see Paxton's home life and his relationship with his grandfather, who he speaks in Japanese with, and maybe some more of his heritage, how much he is involved in it. But also, I've been saying this, is that I think it'd be an interesting kind of role reversal if, he spent the entire season 1 being chased by Davy. She's been trying to win his heart, trying to figure out ways to make him like her, and now, spoiler alert, like, he's having thoughts about it at the end of season 1, where he's like, wow, maybe there's something there. He wants to explore it. But he may be too late. So it may be the first time he's liked someone, and then one hasn't been able to just easily make her fall for him, but also a girl that he originally thought was so far not in his league. So it'd be really interesting to see him like in this, like never having dealt with this, trying to go for Davy, but not knowing what to do with himself.
Mm-hmm. Or if she like maybe she comes back and she's kind of disinterested. She's happy with the other guy. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
I'd also love to go to India. I'd love
that. I think we'd all love to see that. That would be amazing.
So cool.
Yeah. I think another part of Paxton that I would love to hear more about is his relationship with his sister too. I think that is sort of what endeared him to Davy in the first place, is just sort of like, at first he was very protective of his sister, and then he realized that like they were just like kind of hitting it off as friends. Yeah. I think that's also another very interesting kind of route to go down.
So Lily was amazing on set, for one. And that part of my character was one of the only things I did like somewhat extensive research for. Because I've had friends that have Down syndrome, and then friends that have, distant siblings or relatives that have, Down syndrome, but I wanted to understand the dynamic of having a sibling day to day growing up that has Down syndrome, because I have a friend that her brother has Down syndrome, and it always seems very happy-go-lucky, like she's very understanding and she's always there for him and he's an amazing guy. But I'm like, I know it can't all be sunshine and rainbows, like especially growing up as a young sibling, there's got to be favoritism. There's got to be sometimes maybe you even resent them.
Totally.
So I asked a friend from school that, about her brother, and I was like, can you give me the lowdown? She said, yeah, sometimes I absolutely hated him just like any other sibling. Like it wasn't just always like, oh, he has Down syndrome, we need to be understanding. Like sometimes you get frustrated. And I really wanted to take that in and try and play that. And so that was a really cool thing to dive into and be able to learn.
And I think we see hints of that. And that's what I was kind of getting at, which is like, you sense that that's sort of part of Paxton's story, is that, it is a kind of an up and down thing. And I just think it's, that'd be a really cool story to tell for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, this is only the beginning of the success of this show. I think, it's only been out for a couple of weeks now, and it's already probably changed your life in a lot of different ways. What do you hope comes next for you outside of the show in particular? What do you want this to kind of turn into for you?
Outside of the show, I mean, I want to make deeply impactful films that punch you straight in the face. I want to do some psychosomatic thrillers, some suspense films that have twists at the end that will blow your mind. I would love to work with David Fincher, Martin Scorsese. Ryan Murphy's been on my radar for a while. But yeah, I want to write as well. I want to write my own films and even direct. I kind of want to dabble in all of it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think the sky's the limit right now. And I think it's just sort of like, I think you're on the right path, and it's going to be exciting to watch what comes next for you. Darren, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I'm glad that you're staying safe and healthy and just enjoying this moment, because you have a lot to be happy about.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For more stories from In the Know, go to intheknow.com. You can also follow In the Know on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Gibson John, on Instagram and Twitter at Gibsonoma. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.